I get paid whether you sell or not. So my motivation or AgencyFocus's motivation is different than some that they get paid when they sell your agency. That is not our structure.
Welcome to Business Refocused, a podcast about the people, decisions, and strategies behind building a successful business. Each week, we talk with leaders and operators about what they're learning, what's working, and the challenges that come with growth. I'm Lindsay Sexton, and I'm happy to introduce you to my co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Let's get into it.
Carey, you also, I think, have a passion for investing in early career talent. You at least did it with one person.
I did. I absolutely did. I do have a huge passion for that, 100%.
But before you did that, and this is where we'll pivot, you had a long career not in exactly what you're doing today. So, Lindsay, we'll get to you, but I want to talk to Mom for just a second. Grew up in Ohio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me the first time you ever stepped into anything insurance related occupationally.
Oh, my first entry into insurance was with the PIA of Ohio, which is a state association. It was the largest of the two. And I applied through a company called 10 to 2 because I had two young kids at home that I had raised for 12 years. I'd stayed home with them, and I wanted to get out of the house from the time they were in school. So I thought this will be a great little entree back into a career. And I met George Hansel, who was the CEO of the PIA. And he said, "Oh my goodness, you're just what we're looking for. We're looking to merge with the big I. And you've got a background that has some M&A experience and none of us do. So welcome to the team."
And you were roughly how old at that time?
Oh, geez. I was in my mid-30s.
Okay. And did that merger happen?
It did. It absolutely did. Within about 18 months of me joining. And I thought, I'm going to do this cute little project. It'll be great. I don't know a thing about insurance. And then I'm going to find another tech company, because prior to that, I was in a tech startup, and I absolutely loved the birth to IPO process and thought, I'm going to find another way to do that. And by the time that happened, 18 months later, I was hooked on this industry for sure. So
is that Columbus based?
It was, yeah.
And how big did the team go from and to when you merged up?
So the PIA actually had a staff of around 25-ish at the time. And the big I, believe it or not, was the smaller of the two entities. That's flipped. That's actually not true in most states. And so I think their team was probably 12 to 15, but all of that team was at retirement age. So we actually only took on maybe 4 or 5 of their staff. I mean, literally everyone was at retirement age. We were, the PIA was their succession plan. So they stayed. There's some people that did some transition work. So the staff itself went to probably 30, maybe 27, 30, and it was around 24 when we started. So, yeah.
So Lindsay's born at this point or not quite yet?
Oh, she's born at this point. She was in middle school. So
that was my start in the insurance industry. I shredded papers and crossed out social security numbers on everyone's E&O.
Are you still doing that work for the company?
Yep. I cross out social. I just have Sharpies on my desk all day, and that's all I do.
Oh, goodness, no.
We need to give you some more opportunity, it sounds like. So, Carey, the merger gets completed. That project is done. What's the next thing they put you on?
Well, the board, this is what hooked me on this industry. So I met some of the brightest agents I know and some of my closest friends still today during that process that sat on the board. And they basically said, we have been competing to get as many members as possible. That's what an association does. They want to attract as many members as possible, and they want to provide services to their members to meet their needs as much as possible. So once that was completed, the question was, what's our value proposition? Like, what are we going to do now that we've achieved? We have all the agents in Ohio. What are we going to do for them? And the number one thing that came to the top of the list at that time, this was 2008, 2009, when this was, that's when I joined. And I think the merger happened right around, a year and a half, 2 years later than that. So the question was, what is our value proposition and what can we do? And many agents at that time felt like M&A was at an all-time high. There was no services out there to help agents that were 2 million and below get a valuation or an idea of what their agency was worth, because it typically cost between $8,000 and $10,000. So for a smaller agency, that would never be something you would do as a business planning tool. That was something you did when you're ready to sell.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's too late. So we created valuation and perpetuation planning services that were affordable, targeted at 2 million and below agencies. That was the first thing they put me on. The second thing was, we have all this data. We write the insurance for all of these agencies, and we don't know which agencies are growing, which agencies are declining, and how can we predict that? So we created a data analytics company, which is where I learned so much about independent insurance agents. And we used the E&O data to build a database of 22,000 independent insurance agencies to look for trends and really share that data back with agents in the form of benchmarking. So I led what was called Intel Agents for 3 or 4 years, and got a very deep understanding of independent insurance agencies in that process. So those are the things that I pivoted to. I did not do the traditional, put on the trade show or do, advocacy or any of that. Yeah.
Did the Big I bring a service offering that the PIA at that time did not already have?
Here's the craziest thing. So everyone thought PIA were the smaller agencies, the whatever, and the Big I would have been the much more sophisticated, larger agencies. What actually happened when we've completed that is it was a mirror image of each other. It was just a smaller version of the PIA. The difference was E&O coverage was different at the Big I than what's at the PIA. Mm-hmm. One had Westport, the other had Utica at the time. Yep. But there were no services that the Big I brought. The PIA actually had more services at that time. And
I've known that. Obviously, we're in Indiana. I've been party to a situation where the PIA of Ohio was hired to do a valuation and run a process to sell an agency. So they're still doing that.
Yeah.
Are there any other states where it's flipped? Because almost every other state I know of, Big I is bigger. And so are there other states, question one, and question two, how did Ohio end up with that flip-flop?
I cannot think of another state that was flip-flopped, with the exception of when we were PIA. New York had a nice operation and they did magazines for many other states. So they had developed a skill set that they then offered to do for other states.
Yeah,
and then we had a counterpart in Pennsylvania. They actually had some merged states where they do Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware. And so the PIA of Pennsylvania was a great counterpart to us because they were around our size. But those are really our two colleagues from the PIA standpoint. Every other PIA was much smaller than us, and we had a hard time connecting because they didn't have the resources, right?
Because you probably had a PIA convention or something.
That's correct. And we were a much larger group during that time. Massachusetts had a great PIA footprint as well. But the reason PIA ended up being so flip-flopped was they had more resources. So in Ohio, workers' comp was not sold by agents. It was sold, it wasn't available that way. And George Hansel was brilliant and created a work comp program that he grew to our largest revenue stream. So it gave us more resources to create more services. Yeah.
Does the Big I exist at all in Ohio, or it's gone? It got merged. It never restarted.
Great question. So you would think we would merge and then we would disaffiliate Big I because PIA was larger. But what actually happened was we stayed a dual agent or dual state for several years. And then we actually let go of the PIA charter and became a Big I state because there's so many other resources and counterparts across the country. Remember, you kind of felt like your own lone person when it was just you in much smaller states. So we actually did the opposite of what you would think we would do.
The Big I won out after all.
The Big I did win. Yes.
Interesting. So you're running this deal. You're doing mergers and acquisitions and valuations. You walk in on one of the weekdays, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, maybe a Monday, maybe a Friday. And you had that first thought of, I think my time here is coming to an end.
Mm.
Is that how it went down?
It's, Todd, I think with lots of people, you get to a point where you find the thing that you love doing the most. And I started my career in a startup where everybody wears a million hats. Like many agency owners, you wear so many hats and you get to the point you're like, oh my goodness, which hat do I love? And for me, it was consulting with agents. I wanted to be as close to agents as possible. So running a data analytics company, also being the CFO, COO of the state association and being the lead consultant gave me 3 full-time jobs.
Sure.
And at some point, that's just not feasible to continue to do all 3 full-time jobs. So at the time, Lindsay was graduating or getting ready to be close to graduating college. My other daughter lives with us and we had a vacation home in the South. We were commuting back and forth. It just made sense. Like, what do I really want to do? I want to consult with agents and I'm literally the only person in our family that's keeping us in Ohio. It might be time to start something new. So I decided it was time to spread my wings and start a consulting company. And we then moved to Hilton Head and Lindsay graduated Miami of Ohio and she moved to Charleston to start her master's. And it just became a new chapter for everybody. So yeah.
What year was that?
Oh, Linz, that was the year after COVID. So what, 21?
20.
Yeah. 20,
I think, yeah.
2021.
Well, happy 5-year anniversary.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So Lindsay,
it's a cool little story.
When mom says she's going to branch out and start this thing, your first couple thoughts were what?
Well, of course I knew everything because I had just graduated college, right? Like I, knew everything. My first thought was, oh crap, we have to get her like a website, a logo, a flyer. And being technology savvy of the generation that I am, those were all things that I created. And since I've looked back and been like, holy crap, why would I say that on a business flyer? Why would I do that? But I didn't join the company right away. I actually had absolutely no interest in going into insurance at that time at all.
Now pause right there. Carey, did you make her an offer? Did she turn you down or did you sort of play it cool?
It didn't even cross my mind, to be quite honest, to try and start recruiting into the company because originally I thought this would be a one-man band. I was going to consult the amount that I wanted to and manage the size of it. And it would just be my own thing. In fact, the original logo had AgencyFocus with my name in the logo, Carey Wallace. And that got dropped very, very quickly. Sure. But I didn't have that vision. And it's just interesting where I am today versus where I started. But it was not hey, everybody join me. It was more of she pitched in to help. I had a cousin who pitched in to help, but no, you should tell him how your journey was, Lindsay, because it's not a straight line at all.
Yeah, not a straight line. I strategically worked a couple of different roles in insurance once I decided I needed to be insurance. And then the podcast also was a huge help to getting us to where we were today. We kind of like test drove working together by doing the podcast together, which was kind of fun.
It's a great way to do it. So you graduate from Miami University of Ohio,
Yes.
Uptown, UDF, Houston Woods, all those fun things, right? If you know that school.
Yes.
What was your first gig? What was your freshman in the real world job?
So I, having no interest of working in the insurance industry, joined the Big I of North Carolina
There you go.
as my first job.
Good job. Well played.
And I'm of the opinion of, if I was going to go work for one, that was the best one. I learned a ton. I started as working for a program that they called Insure Academy, and it's still around. And you're going to love this. The point of that program, I'm sorry?
Was training.
Yes, it was bring people in from outside the industry, get them licensed, and then there's some like vocational training of like, here's how you act at work, here's how you dress at work. Here, they trained you on like accord forms, like how to basics of insurance, and then they marketed them to their members.
Interesting.
So my job was to help recruit people. So I, contacted guidance counselors across the state of North Carolina. I talked to nonprofits. I talked to anyone that would listen to me about this program. And that was while I was getting my master's in public administration. So I like to say I got my master's in not making a profit, because that is what that is. And then it got me really hooked on insurance. So I eventually transitioned and worked directly in the marketing department there, learned a ton doing that. And from there, I decided I really liked helping independent insurance agents, but I didn't want to be one myself. And so I went to work at a network in order to learn deeper. And we have a lot of friends in the industry who are bringing their kids either into the agency or leading them into the industry now, who I feel like the typical guidance is you go work at a carrier, right? And you learn about the industry and then you go work at your agency. But working at a network,
kind of both, kind of a split.
I got to see lots of different carriers and what they care about and hear why they cared about it. I got to see lots of different agencies and understand why do they do things the way they do? What do they care about? I got to see lots of different tech companies and understand those things about them. So I really got a well-rounded understanding of the industry by working in a network. And then eventually the day came where it was time to join the family company.
So how long were you at the Big I in North Carolina? And then you didn't say which network it was. So which network did you join?
Yeah, I was with the Big I for about 2 years, and I was with Indium for also about 2 years.
Were you any good at recruiting during your time at the Big I?
At the Big I, recruiting people to come in?
In that role?
Yeah. So my job was more community outreach, not technically recruiting. But I've always really liked connecting with people, talking to people, helping people find the solutions they're looking for. So my role wasn't necessarily like interviewing the candidates and getting them in, but it was more like getting the word out. So I was very successful at getting us into like career fairs. And then I'd organize to send a member, so an actual agency, to be the representative at the career fair, and then have them recruit people. I'm like, you can recruit for yourself, of course, while you're there, but you also can recruit for people to come into this program if they're maybe not in your direct area, or they're not 100% sure, you think they're a little rough around the edges and you want to like see how this goes first, right? So I had a good time in that role.
So, Carey, your daughter spends 2 years at the Big I. You probably know half the people at that office from your affiliation, Ohio. She goes and does a network. You're bootstrapping this thing. By the time Lindsay comes back and the conversations get a little more serious, are there other employees at AgencyFocus yet?
There are. Yeah, there were 6 other employees at that point.
Sorry, Lindsay, you avoided being number 2.
I avoided being number 2. Yeah. But thank goodness for the number 2 employee. We could not do our daily lives without her. So very thankful for Lauren on the team.
No doubt. So yes, there are 6 other employees at the time that Lindsay joins officially. And again, that was not the intent, but I hired very quickly, and then things grew and it continued to grow. So we hired. So yeah.
So Lindsay comes in. You're now 4 years? No, Lindsay, how long have you been on?
5.
You've been on 2 years now, or 1 year with AgencyFocus officially?
Under 2 years.
Under 2 years.
So I'm in my second year.
So Carey, you've only really been at it 3.5 years by the time Lindsay comes in. How different is AgencyFocus, other than your name's not in the logo, 3.5 years later from when you started and what you thought it was going to be? What additional services are you now providing, or what geography are you covering that you thought you never would get to?
So it is different. When we first started, valuation was the lead. If you needed to know the value of your agency, you should think of us. We're the ones that would do that. And that's great. I think that makes a difference. I think everybody should be looking at their business and understanding what's driving the value and how to change that, pull the levers, like you say, in order to maximize that value. But that was kind of like stepping over the bar. And what today looks like is, yes, we still do valuation. We still do perpetuation planning services, but that only makes up about 30 to 40% of what we do. Most of it is fractional CFO work. It's putting it into practice and figuring out, how do we get you from point A to point B? And that could be getting your agency ready to acquire. It could be going through the transition from one owner to another. It could be the 5 years prior to getting ready to exit. But how do we help you implement all of those things that you would learn in evaluation or would think about in a benchmarking or whatever? But how do we truly move the needle and help stand beside you and do that? So fractional CFO work came into we were always doing the consulting, but we actually formalized fractional CFO work probably in year 2 of AgencyFocus, and that's the fastest growing part of our business. We also implemented masterminds where agencies want to actually dig deeper into their agency and get in a room with other people who want to do that. So we have about 8 different masterminds that we facilitate. Again, my passion was to go deep with agents, and valuation is the entree in order to do that. It's not the ending point. So it now looks much different than what it did. And, I love that we're able to go far deeper than when we first started.
So some of your clients are ongoing, fractional CFO. Others are one-time or project-based. How many different agencies since inception have you accepted at least $1 of payment from?
Oh, wow. That's funny. I actually was counting that every single year. So on average, we do about 200 valuations a year.
Wow.
We have 40 fractional CFO clients, and the whole, one-off consulting, that's a number I don't have in the top of my head, but I know it's several thousand, which is pretty exciting. Yeah.
Certainly there is a lot of agencies. I've heard 18,000. I've heard 28,000. I don't know if they're counting captives or what, but there's no shortage of agencies out there. There's regeneration. There's a lot of acquisitions. I think the number I had, at least from the Hales report, was like 7,399 agencies have been bought in the last 10 years. And of course, that's just the ones that are reported. Mm-hmm. What is happening, and not the demographic of the aging owners, what's happening on the, I guess I'd call it the provider side, your side, that is allowing your business to just take off? What did somebody vacate something that left a vacuum that nobody was doing? Did somebody fall on their face? So again, not the demographic of the owners are retiring, but what happened on the provider side?
Remember when we started valuation and perpetuation planning services, I told you there was a real focus to only price your products and serve a clientele that you could then also broker and sell, right? So if you're going to pay $8,000 to $10,000 for a valuation, that might be waived if you broker and sell with us, et cetera. So there was almost like this gaping hole that I really didn't realize existed, that I walked through for targeting agencies where 83% of independent agencies are under $2 million in revenue. Number one. So do something that's affordable, meaningful, able to be understood, and then can lead to action was our whole idea. The second part of that is we don't broker. So we ended up having state associations want to partner with us because, they want to avoid their agencies selling and losing members. So instantaneously, I had a marketing arm of all these associations that trusted me to not come in and then broker and sell their agencies. Yeah. I'm not saying I don't help people get where they're going, but that's not our model. We're not brokers. Right. We literally are consultants that are going to help you and give you as many options as possible. So I think my model's a little different, and I think the pricing is different. And I think I don't have I get paid whether you sell or not. So my motivation or AgencyFocus's motivation is different than some that they get paid when they sell your agency. That is not our structure. So I think it's just there was a need, and luckily I was able to fill some of that need.
That's interesting. Lindsay, I'm sure there are areas, new products, new services, new offerings you think about as that individual of the early career, always thinking about, hey, let's do this. What are a few of those you feel comfortable sharing that maybe mom hasn't quite yet said, give you the green light on yet, but you think it's a darn good idea because you see a need out there?
Well, we all know that I know everything. We've established that.
That truth, yes.
On this podcast. One of the things that I think is going to become increasingly, I think there's a need for it now, and there's not a great solution that doesn't involve a ton of spreadsheeting, either by us or by the agent themselves, is being able to model what your agency will look like after an acquisition accurately, and being able to identify, hey, this agency, right, has, I'm going to use an example that we literally just went on, we just went over on a call, right? So this agency might have a carrier that I also have, but they're with a different network than me. Let's identify what commission percentage do they get because of that network. Will I be able to have upside or will I have downside on that? And then how will that change my contingency, right? And maybe I'm a member of a different network where I would really be able to leverage that. Or maybe it's going to bump me into a different area or different opportunities with that agency or with that carrier. Being able to eliminate, hey, I don't need to pay 2 E&Os. Let's remove that. I'm not going to need to pay for double tech expense. Let's remove that. And really being able to drill in and look at what does it actually look like when I purchase this other agency.
What are some synergies? Yeah. Is talent something you guys are doing today or looking to do? Talent acquisition, kind of like you were doing at the Big I, North Carolina?
We are not in the business. We stay pretty tight to what we do, Todd. And I think that's also a strength. At least I view it as a strength, where if it deals with making strong financial decisions, we're going to double down into it. But if it's sales management or coaching or hiring, that's not our thing. We have plenty of people we would refer to, but that is definitely not. I do think at some point I do have some fractional CFO clients that they have their own internal talent that's going to turn over in their finance area, and they're not sure how to recruit for that. They're not sure what questions to ask for that. So I've had a few engagements that's my role. I go in and I fill the gap, and then I help them hire and help them through the process in order to make that happen. So to that end, yes, but it's because the leadership of that organization has had a CFO for years and years and years. They're going to retire, and they need help filling it. And they also need help with someone that's going to train them to do what they need to do. So yes, to that degree, but that's the extent of our talent.
Have you guys given much thought to how much connectivity and breadth the two of you have to our industry, and probably how very few people have the same amount of reach?
Having a podcast is one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do. And I love that it's allowed us to connect with so many people. And build a brand and, build trust without someone even meeting you. They hear you week after week, or they see you and they feel like they know you, which is great.
Right.
Leveraging that brand is something I think about a lot, Todd, but I think there's a lot of people in this industry that do that and do it to their detriment. So I want to be very thoughtful about how to do that and how to connect people. My current passion project with another friend of mine, her name's Beth De La Forest, is we see people like Lindsay in this industry, and we want to create mentors for them that are not inside their own organization. And so that is one way that I am leveraging the people that I know, the people, for them to lend their leadership knowledge to people that want to grow as leaders, but maybe aren't getting it inside their own organization or want purview. And so that's one of the ways that I think is very productive for me to bring some people together to do something good for our industry. Like those things I'm going to do all day long. But have I gotten really good at figuring out how to leverage the network? I haven't. That's something I still need to work on.
I mean, the podcast is huge, and I'm going to guess Lindsay maybe pushed that potentially, maybe not. Was that your?
No, not really.
No.
My mom was on a trip to Napa with a couple of other industry folks. I had been in the industry less than 6 months at this point. Like I was really just like had a job. Like I wasn't like, oh yes, insurance, And so she texted me one morning, and it's I can't remember. There had to have been wine involved. I don't know what was going on over there.
We were at a winery, yes.
Starter.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm sitting across from Bradley Flowers, and he tells me I need to start a podcast. Like, you're going to have to help me with that one. I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, ha, ha, ha. How funny would it be if you and I had an insurance podcast? That's so stupid. And she's like, no, that's a great idea. Order mics.
Yep.
Roll it up. I'm
like, what's really funny. Yeah. What's funny is honestly, Bradley Flowers was across the table, and Daniel Sung, who also has a very successful podcast. He suggested I kept thinking, I'm going to do a podcast. I know I want to get this knowledge out there, but I think I'm going to do rotating and have different agency owners be my co-host. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Have you ever thought about, you told us your daughter's in the industry. Have you ever thought about doing like something with that generation? And I'm like, that is brilliant.
Bingo.
And I literally texted her. She suggested it at the same time. I'm like, oh, well, this is going to happen. So Daniel Sung and I both started a podcast at the same time, which is interesting. But, I was surrounded by people that were in that world, which was kind of fun. But
and what number episode roughly would this be?
Linz, do you know?
I think it's like in the 80s or in the 180s.
180s.
Yeah. 170s.
170s.
So yeah.
That's a lot.
And we've consistently released episodes every single week since releasing our podcast.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think about content. Individuals like you, and this is why when we're together in a peer group or at a network meeting, this is why agents love to get together, because we're siloed. We just know our own business. And we come alongside and sit next to you on a boat going down Newport Beach or whatever it is. And we just want to plug in our download wire and download everything that you know, not in a unscrupulous way, but in just I'm willing to give, I'll make a deposit. Can I take a withdrawal? And
sure.
The podcast is certainly one of those things. But I'd like you guys to consider, let me ask you this before I say this. Do you produce any other, and I'm going to call it a report or white paper, on any annual or quarterly? Lindsay's smiling. There must be something here. Do you produce anything on a regular basis currently?
Go ahead, Linz.
We don't. And I think it's dumb that we don't. That's been like my number one thing I've been pushing for since joining the team.
Full disclosure, Lindsay, we didn't talk about this, did we?
No, we didn't. But I love how you're just laying it up for me right there. No, it is a goal of ours in order to start producing, because the other silo that allows our business to thrive that we didn't share is plenty of the other publications like Best Practices, Reagan, Marshberry, all of those. they don't have benchmarks for agencies under $1 million in revenue. They lump, 1.2 and below all into the same category. And if you're telling me an agency that's 1.2 in revenue looks the same as an agency that's 200K in revenue, 500K in revenue, 850 in revenue, like they just don't look the same. And there's a huge ramp up period. And it's the majority of the industry that's there. So we do have benchmarks in that size because of the nature of our business. We were born to serve agencies of that size. Of course, we have clients now that are larger as well, but the majority of the agency population is that size. So how could we not?
Right. Well,
in our size. So
I'm pleased to
I'd
hear
love
that
to publish those.
that you're thinking about that. When I think about the brand you guys have, obviously it's very persona centric. It's Carey, it's Lindsay, it's some of the other people on the team. Nobody is ever going to confuse you with some of the big guys. And I think, and here's what I mean by that. Do not take that wrong. That is a weapon, that is a power, that is a strength of yours. There is relationship. I know I'm talking to the people on the ground who own the business. They're in it every day. This is the last career that Carey Wallace will ever have, right? And this is probably the last career that Lindsay will ever have. And you think about, there's a long runway ahead. And when I think about your business, I don't hear about a lot of the big guys leading peer groups. That's just not necessarily a thing that they do. You guys have these relationships. Like your name comes up on my phone, I'm picking it up. I'm going to step out of the meeting because I have a relationship with you. And I know you're not going to call me with, hey, what's going on? What's the update? You got something for me. When you think about content, there's got to be something that feels like a hurt on the street, something that is maybe not even a quote, but something that brings me, an agency owner, into what other agency owners are saying. And so the financials are great. That's a wonderful piece, but it can't be, because that somewhat feels like some of these other reports. And maybe there is a need for that. But the relational capital that you guys have, I've not really seen it elsewhere. I mean, you guys know so many people. And, one of my questions was going to be, do either of you have any enemies? Like just one person that doesn't like you, one person that you kind of don't get along with? Please tell me there's at least one.
There is one. We are human beings. Yes, we are. Yes. Yeah.
But seriously,
but
guys,
there's not many though. I will tell you, Todd, like I really do try to surround myself with people that make me better. And I love this industry. I can tell you that I have favorites. I have people that I would be drawn to, but I love that I've found a home in this industry and I feel like I've surrounded myself with great people. But I hear you. And I hesitate to just publish because I don't want to be like everything else. So, we started this when Lindsay started publishing a newsletter where we shared some of our own data, but I have not formally done something where it's a publication that you download and you pay for and all that good stuff. But it is on the horizon because I think there is, information to be shared. I think there's classes, how to set up your financials. How do you get to the basics and build where it's not one-to-one, but it's one-to-many? Those things are all coming. No doubt about it. Remember, we're in year 5 here. So we got lots of runway ahead of us.
Well, and the way, Todd, we've done it so far is we've actually released quite a few case studies. And some of them, the agency's named, some of them, the agency is not named, just depending on the amount of data that we're sharing. But those are our close friends and our close clients so far that we have written on to say, hey, here is actually a blueprint for something, or here's an actual numbers paired with a person's face, right? That's there. They've done it. They are in your shoes, but we helped them get there, right? So that's what we've done so far. But I would like to publish a longer form and regularly updated type version, because I think it's important for people to learn. And the nature of our business, I think it's important to have a way to opt in without having to call someone or without having to, pay money.
Well, I would read anything you guys put out and I wouldn't feel solicited to. So I would think about it more like a Christmas card. Don't you feel like once a year it's kind of important to update your friends and family, whether it's just with pictures or with a little note? I would think about it like that, because I think there's a lot of people out here that feel like we're your family in one way, shape, or form, and would certainly like to read an update, even if it's a little bit personal. Make that part of your brand, because I think relationship is your brand.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Todd. Thank you.
So I'm going to end this, since this is now my podcast, at least for the remaining time we have, with a little exercise, and we'll start with Lindsay. And Lindsay, what we're going to do is, Carey is no longer your mother for the next couple of minutes. She's your boss. She's your employer. She's who you work with. I would like for you to let the audience know some things that just blow you away about her as a boss, as a mentor, and as a leader of AgencyFocus.
Well, this is hilarious because my sister's birthday was yesterday, and came to my house like randomly at 3:30. I just moved into a house a mile away from my boss, and I saw her face pop in like the side window, and my husband pops out. He's like, "Who's here?" And I'm like, "My boss." So I frequently am actually in this mindset. My favorite things about her professionally, I think the first thing is she leads with humility. I think that's how the Wallace AgencyFocus brand here in the industry has very few enemies, right? Because there's a very key element there that's like, when you mess up, own up to it. And hey, really sorry, I messed up there. Let me make it right. Right. So there's a very strong sense of that. And that's embedded throughout our team. I think that's super important. She leads with relationship. And I think that is something that you can't teach. That's just what's in you.
Yep.
So
that's awesome.
Wouldn't want to work for anybody else.
Humility.
It's a good time over here.
Humility, relationship, and fun is what I heard.
Yeah.
Carey, you've got an early career talent person on your team. They are wild. They want all this flexibility. They're just crazy, aren't they? They're hard to contain. Lindsay is not your daughter. She's just a member of the growing AgencyFocus team. What do you most appreciate about her professionally?
So you asked a question, Todd, that you probably just anticipated because you've gotten to know Lindsay. But she pushes very, very hard, and she sees things that I do not see, which is impressive at her age. And she has very, very little fear. So she came on our team and basically said, "You're missing a big piece of what you should have." And not only did she identify it, but she said, "And I'm willing to help you build it," and did something she's never done before. So as a generation, she's part of a generation that I think likes to know before they try. She did it with zero fear. It's probably one of the hardest things she's ever done. And with the added stress of, my mom's built something pretty solid. Like if I could screw this up, you know what I mean? Like, right. And so she's done that in a way that, she recognizes that she has to learn and grow, but she's willing to take on the really hard work and, do it while juggling a lot of other things. So it's been very impressive. And I don't know if you know this, Todd, but my entire team is remote.
I do know.
So, you got to have a high level of trust that people are going to do what they say they're going to do. And I don't question it ever with anyone on my team, but certainly not Lindsay. She's probably the hardest working person on our team and is willing to do the hard stuff. So it's very impressive. It's incredibly impressive.
Sounds like a wonderful team. So Carey Wallace, Lindsay Wallace from Todd Hufford at Connor Insurance, the takeover host of the Insurance Refocused podcast. I commandeered this for at least 40 minutes. Good luck to your next host that'll do this. Thank you from all of us out here who are being benefited from all of you in your remote offices. All I ask of you is to go serve more people as well as you've served the ones you already have.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how AgencyFocus can help you grow your agency? head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.